right, how y'all doing today? And welcome once again to the Average Missionary. That's me, and hopefully you as well. And here, as always, we prepare to share, and that's what this is all about. Today, I'm going to have something for you. It's going to be, I don't know, I think it'll be short, but short and sweet. But what I was talking to you about in the last episode, I promised that we were going to talk about the cold opening. In other words, how do you start off a conversation? Now, sometimes you're given some, I won't say ammunition. I don't want to sound like we're in a battle here, but you're given something that you can use to get in. And before, like I said, we don't want to be cheesy with it and try to turn everything someone says into a gospel presentation. Sometimes that can sound pretty plastic, pretty corny, very unnatural, and we're not trying to do that. But we do want to at times be able to get into the conversation, especially if we're talking with someone and we've been talking about different things and there's small talk involved, and you want to transition because you believe, hey, there's an opportunity here. And it's not really that they gave you anything specific that you could transition into, but you do want to transition. And you want to begin that spiritual conversation. And so it's kind of like a cold opening. How do I get into it? What do I say to get things going? Understanding that for many of us, that's going to be a very uncomfortable thing, but it's something that if we believe we should be moving into that with a particular person or people, then we want to be able to have some techniques or some ways, basically to go about it. All right, so I told you I'm going to share with you a short story of an event that took place some years back, and it was something that I not only enjoyed but learned from, and I believe it'd be good for all of us, even if you're not engaged in the activity that I'm going to describe. It's still good for whenever you need to open up. And so we had a 4th of July celebration in our city, as well as cities around the United States. And on the 4th of July and other holidays in my city, we have a festival, and they usually block off one of the main streets on the riverfront and allow people to set up booths for food, for games, for attractions, and all kinds of things going on. It's a lot of fun, and people come out. And that was what was happening on the 4th of July this particular year. And a friend of mine named Jacob, and Jacob, if you see this, I'm sure you'll remember this. It was great, and I haven't been able to find the video. If you have the video, I'd like it. But what we decided to do, we decided to go out to the 4th of July celebration and bring a camera and go up to people, whether individual or couple or a small group of people or whatever, and interview them and hopefully get an opportunity to give the gospel. Now, you think, yeah, this is a celebration day. It's an off day from work. It's a day for people having fun and all that. Who's going to want to discuss religion on a day like this when everybody's just out to have fun? Well, it might, to some people, might be a surprise, but it really wasn't to us. There were people who were more than willing to discuss religion, but not so much discuss religion, but discuss their take on religion or faith or God. And that's what we were asking for. What we did, instead of asking them, can we make a presentation? Hey, can we tell you about God? Can we, as one group out there comes up to your house at times and rings the buzzer or knocks on the door. When you come to the door, say, have you heard about the coming kingdom? Or can I tell you about the new earth and new heavens that are going to happen soon, or something like that? We didn't go that direction. What we did was this. I want you to hear how we put this, and then think of how many other ways you can say this same thing. We went out and we'd go up to people and we'd have the camera and we'd say, excuse me, could I ask you a question and ask you on camera just to get your take on something on this 4th of July holiday. And I can't think of whether anyone ever said no. And we, said, can we have just a minute or so to do that? And people would say, sure. And then to set up the question, we said something like, and with all the things that are going on today, we're out here celebrating the 4th of July, the birth of our nation, and there's a lot of things going on today, and some things can be kind of unsettling, and at the same time, there may be some good things going on. But one thing's for sure, there's all kind of things going on, and we don't at times know what the politicians are doing. We don't know what the governments are doing overall. But we want to ask specifically, with everything that's going on, and here is the question, what do you think God is doing with everything that's going on in our world today? And then we just waited for an answer. Now, that was the question. You could set it up different ways. But the question was, what do you think, with everything that's going on, what do you think God is doing in the world today with all that's happening? And everyone had an answer for that. And as you can imagine, the answers went from, well, I don't believe God is doing anything because I don't believe in God, to, well, I think God is doing his best. Or, well, I think depending on what you believe in, I think God is helping us to do better ourselves because it's our world. Or you would hear someone say, well, God's not really concerned about what's going on in the world. He got it started, and now it's up to us to... We got such a range of answers, but everyone answered, and we listened. And then after listening to some of what a person would have to say, we would have some questions based on what they said. And we would ask for permission to spend that time. Say, if you don't mind, if we could have just a couple more minutes, because we don't want to keep you from the festivity, but just a couple more minutes, because you said something and I want to ask you a question about that. And people were fine with that because you were asking them questions about something they said, not about something you wanted to tell them. And so we'd ask questions that would help us to see where they were coming from in relationship to the truth, the gospel. And as we asked those questions, they would answer some things. And then we would do, and if you've been following along with our episodes, you can go back to some of the first episodes and you'll see some of the questions that you ask and how to ask those questions. But we would always come to the place of saying, do you mind if I share something with you about that? Because I heard you say this, that, and the other. Do you mind if I share something with you? And it'll just take a minute or so. And they would say, fine. Now, we've always asked for permission, and they've given it. Now, somebody said, well, I really don't want to talk about it anymore, but thanks anyway. Then we say, okay, well, thank you, and move on. That did not happen. I mean, we were out there for hours, and we interviewed people from youth, teenagers, on up to 60-somethings, black, white, male, female, individual, group of people, whatever it was, all kinds of diversity out there celebrating for 4th of July. And it didn't matter. People stopped. They answered the questions. We kept things lighthearted, but we definitely were able to share the gospel. And so after we finished with a few questions, not a lot, a few questions here and there, then we said, do you mind if I share something with you that speaks to what you said about, whatever question it was? And then we shared. Sometimes we shared and it was just maybe about a minute or two. Other times we were sharing and then we got asked questions. And then it went further. And in fact, I remember this one group, I believe they were definitely teenagers, about 4 or 5 teenage guys walking along the riverfront. All the music's playing in the background, things are going on. And we stopped and we asked them, and they were more than willing to get on the camera. I mean, this is their thing. They got on the camera, different ones talked about what they believe, some cracked some jokes and all that, you know. But at a certain point, we asked, well, can we tell you something? Do you mind if we tell you something about, you know, the questions we were asking and what you said? Yeah, sure. And then we began to share with them the truth of God as the creator, and what's happening in the world today is based on what we have done with what God has given us, and that he is working things out to an ultimate end for everything to be brought into harmony with his will. And we began to share the gospel of Christ. They asked questions. We answered questions. They asked more questions. We answered those questions. And it turned out to be quite a conversation. Went on for a while where we got to fully share the gospel with this group of teens. And basically that's how the day went. You know, I mean, it was a great day. It was a great day of opportunity. And if this is something that you're interested in doing some kind of very overt outreach to people in your community or your city or whatever, get in touch, because there are definitely some ideas I could share with you. And you may have some of your own that you might want to pass by me so that I could talk to you about it and evaluate some things. I had a lot of experience with outreaches in this way, as well as the personal one-on-ones. But that's what it was this particular day. Myself, my friend Jacob, we went out and took a camera and just took that simple question. Now you can see how that question can be modified in various ways. The question that we used was, what do you think God is doing with all that's going on in the world today? You might not know what the politicians are doing half the time, the government, whatever, but what do you think God is doing? Now, we asked the question, this is very important. We asked the question with the assumption that God exists and is doing something. We didn't say, do you believe there's a God? Do you believe he's doing anything? We didn't ask the question that way. We asked, what do you think God is doing? And if a person didn't believe, then they would be very forthcoming with that. Well, I don't believe God is doing anything because I don't believe in God. Okay? And then we would ask questions about that. But this is how you can affect a cold opening, because especially if there's already something going on you can relate to. And like I said, without trying to be corny or cheesy, you know, oh, it's a nice day, there's a nice weather, you know, yeah, yes, it is. I wonder what the weather's like in heaven, you know. Or in hell. No, we're not doing that kind of stuff. But you can see how you can use this process, this direction. You can even make a statement about something. You know, yeah, I just finished cancer treatment not too long ago, and there's been times when I've used that. I said, yeah, well, you know, I'm just thankful to be here because I did cancer treatment, and so far I'm cancer free. And sometimes, oh, that's great. What cancer did you have? Treatment, so on and so forth. Yeah. And you know, I don't know about you, but I really believe that I'm here because God has a purpose. Is that something that you would agree with me on, that God has a purpose for us, and no matter what happens, the reason why we're here any given day is because God has basically wanted us to be here. He has a purpose for us being here. You know, you can you can ask the question in ways that just assume the truth of the scripture and give it to the person to see what they're going to do with it. And then you move on to questions and conversation and all that, and really, testing the temperature of the water to see where it's going and if the person is getting annoyed or if they're engaging, whatever, being respectful of people, of their time, and how things are going. And that's basically it. I mean, you take the leap, but you do it in a way that assumes certain things when you ask your question and gives them the opportunity to comment on your question and the assumption that you put out there. And when they do, be prepared, because man, you might find yourself in a real conversation, and that conversation can be a real blessing to the person that you're exchanging with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up a couple different ones as we end this and just let you look at those and maybe think of some of your own. And we'll get together on the next episode where I have something specific when it comes to talking about issues of sin, because one of the things that is very uncomfortable is when we have to talk about sin. For many of us, that's where we feel we're going to lose somebody if we do that. If we get too dogmatic about that, we're going to lose them. Not necessarily. And so I want to address that issue, and I want to see how it's addressed in the scripture to give us the foundation for how we should address it with the people that we exchange with. All right? So, hey, this was short and sweet, but I think that is is really worth its weight in gold as to how to affect that opening. And so I will be looking forward to talking to you about this very essential issue in our sharing in the next episode. So until then, God willing, God bless you as you go.